Hi, it's me. Welcome to my studio. So this is a shot for my 360 camera, and I wanted a real wide shot so you could see just how much stuff that I've crammed into this room, which really isn't all that big. There's so much stuff in here. I regularly trip over things, and I don't think I can get much more in. Primarily wanted to show you my new computer, and I was kind of trying to zoom in on it here. It's on the right there with the black box with the lights. And the reason you're seeing all those lights is it's got the whole left side of the computer is just glass. So what you're seeing is the inside. And so I've got some interesting lighting hooked up with it. And you can see the monitors there. And we'll get closer and have a better look. So we're looking at my new computer that I just built. Let me back up a little bit. You can see all the lighting. To the left here we got monitors, two 4K monitors now. See what I'm working on. And if you look down, you see my keyboard. Oh, there it is. Here's the keyboard. Notice the lights are all lit on that too. Every key can be a different color. Here's an interesting new little addition. You move in on that. I don't know if you can be able to see that or not. That's called a Corsair Nexus. It's an touchable LCD screen with buttons on it that you can program to do whatever you want on your computer. So it plugs into a USB port, and then software lets you program it to start programs and monitor temperatures and just about anything you can imagine. Really cool device. But as you can see, I have a rack now for all my guitars. Well, actually, it's not all of them, but it's the ones that I play on a regular basis. So instead of having some of them tucked away in cases in closets or whatever, I have these sitting right behind me here. And I can swap guitars whenever I want to. And you can't really see it, but behind that is my Fender Mustang Amp. Maybe you can see it now. So I can't hardly even get to it, but that's all right. You can control it from a tablet. So let's see what else. Nothing else to do here. I still got all the same printers and scanners and all that kind of stuff. This is all stuff left over from when I was doing the video work. All these VCRs. I've still got a beta VCR, believe it or not. It still works. Some of them don't, though. There's two 4K. The one on the right is the primary monitor for my new computer. My new computer is called Red Pilled, by the way. The one on the left is a secondary monitor for Red Pilled, but it could also be switched to be the primary monitor for my older computer, which I'm still using because it can do a lot of things my new one's not set up to do yet. See, I still got my speakers sitting up on top of the shelf here. Wait a second while I turn on the light here and I can see this better. Okay, now we can see that a little bit better. The speaker's up there, and if you look over here, there's my last computer right there. It's not turned on. And if you look below that, there's my computer from before that. And then if you go in the basement, you'll find the computer before that one. All of them still work, amazingly enough. Over here you see reel-to-reel tape recorder, a TAC, and a DAT player. The square box is a record cleaner. This racked out here is mostly old MIDI gear. As far as I know, it still works, but I don't use it very often. Okay, here's a different color pattern on the computer. Just give you an idea of some of the stuff you can do with the lights. So the light pattern there is on the computer. It's also on the keyboard. So a pattern of, in this particular setup, a color like goes through the keyboard, then it hits the mouse, then it goes over to the computer on the inside, and then up on the top, and it ends up over on the headphones. If you can see it or not. There you go. That's the headphone stand. Anyhow, it's cool. Something to play with. Okay, I'm back. So the main reason I made this video was to show you the new computer, which I just got done building here a couple weeks ago. So I'm just going to sit here and let you look at it. I've changed the coloring of the lighting system so it'll be all white lights, so you can kind of see inside. At least on the right you can see fans, and the square thing at near the top, that's the CPU, and in between all those strings of light is the motherboard, and that's the primary features. So I thought I would just take like 1 minute and explain how you go about building your own computer, because I don't think a lot of people know how to do this. Well, actually a lot of people do know how to do it, but most people don't. But it's because it's a pretty popular hobby, particularly with the gamers. The gamers love to build their own computers. So how do you do it is the question. It's like, well, where do you even start? And that's the hardest part. It's like, where do you start? And because once you make a few decisions, then as you get further down the line, your choices get narrower and narrower. So it kind of works in a good way. But like I said, where do you start? So for me, at least, and there's a lot of different opinions on how you do this, but for me, you start with well, actually, the best place to start is with your budget. You really have to have a budget, because if you just go through, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of parts out there. If you just go through and pick the best, the best CPU and the best graphics board and the best, you will spend a fortune. Okay, so you have to make intelligent decisions about what to get and what really matters and what doesn't matter. Okay, but the point is, you can put together a really fantastic computer without spending a whole heck of a lot of money. Some people would argue you're better off just buy one that's already put together, and you can make a case for that. I prefer, you never get the level of control and decision making that you get if you do it yourself. Okay, so let's how you do it. I'll try to be brief about this. Okay, I usually start. Okay, let's start with a budget. That's a good idea. Okay, so you've decided how much you're willing to spend. Okay, so the place to start technically is with the CPU. The CPU kind of, once you've decided on that makes a whole lot of other decisions for you. So how do you do that? Well, first of all, there's only two companies, that make CPUs. Okay, that's Intel and AMD. Okay, so they're different, but they're equivalent. Okay, they're very competitive. Their prices are very close. So it's pretty much just pick one. I've dealt with Intel forever and ever, so I just stick with Intel, but AMD is like really popular right now. So you can't really go wrong with either one. But it does, like I said, once you've decided on that, then that's going to make a lot of other decisions for you. Okay, in my case, I picked an Intel CPU. So their top of the line for PCs is the 12900. It costs $600. And this is one of those cases like, okay, right off the bat there goes $600 on your first part. So right off, to save some money, I dropped down one or two levels from the very top CPU, and I got a 12700, and it was $300. So I saved $300, and it will only change the overall performance a few percent. At the most maybe 5 to 10% slower than the fastest one that they've got. So that's what I'm saying. This is where you have to be careful with your money. So once you've chosen an Intel CPU, then you're going to have to pick a motherboard, and there's a half a dozen or so companies that make motherboards. Mine's from MSI, and there's only a few that support that particular CPU. So the next thing is you buy a motherboard. Motherboard's typically in the $200 to $300 range. Okay, so then you need to add RAM, random access memory. The CPU can't work without memory to work in. So you pick that out. That's a pretty straight deal right there. Is you pick the one that's compatible with it. Then you need to have storage. Storage used to be a big hard drive. Storage is where you keep your operating system. Okay, it used to be a big hard drive. It's not anymore. Very few people would buy a hard drive. They all come on solid state drives now. A solid state drive is just a chip that sits on the motherboard. So now you've got your RAM, you've got storage, you've got to power the whole thing up, right? So there's a power supply that you buy. That makes sense. Plug it into the wall. And at that point, add a keyboard and a mouse and you've got a complete computer. So once you have all of that, there comes a point in time when you put all these pieces together, and there's a little bit of wiring to do, but it's not that much. But one thing I did kind of skip over is the cooling. You have to add some number of fans, and a popular thing with the high-end CPUs now is to use water cooling because it works so much better than just having a fan. So, like if you look at that square in the middle of the computer, that's actually a water pump, and it goes to two hoses. I think you can see the hoses. They go off to the right, and those three fans on the right blow on a radiator that has water. So the water circulates through that whole thing. It works a lot like what you have in your car with the radiator and a water pump moving the water around. It's just the most efficient way to get rid of heat, is to let it heat up water and then blow air over the radiator. Okay, so then at some point you put all of this stuff together, and then you work up the nerve to actually turn the power on, and hope that it works. And mine did. The first time. As a matter of fact, every one that I've ever put together has worked perfectly the first time. It's just a matter of working slowly and carefully and not doing anything stupid, and making sure that when you plug your RAM in, you plug it all the way in and it's seated properly, stuff like that. So I did skip over one big item here, and this goes back to the budget thing, and that's your graphics card. So there's this terrible shortage of graphics cards right now. Partly, there's a shortage of a lot of things, from the COVID situation. But with the graphic cards, it's another situation altogether. It has a lot to do with the digital currencies, and the graphics cards are used for, I won't go into it, but the graphics cards are used in computers to work with digital currencies and make some money. And so those people have been buying them up so quickly that the manufacturers cannot keep up with it. So this has been a problem for over a year now, and it's still pretty bad. And what has happened because of the short supply, the price of the graphics cards has gone 2 to 3 times what it normally is. So if you budgeted, say, $300 to $500 for a graphics card, you're looking at $1,000 to $1,500 for a graphics card right now. So I'm trying to hedge my bet on that, and what I did was I did not get a graphics card. It turns out that all the CPUs that you buy these days, the good ones, have graphics capability built in. And it's not nearly as good as what your graphics card will do for you. But it's pretty good all the same. So my plan was to not get the graphics card just yet and deal with the situation and hopefully see if they come down. If they don't come down within, a couple of months, then I'll probably just go ahead and bite the bullet and get whatever I can afford. So anyhow, of course, the other big thing here is all this lighting. The lighting is it's a real trendy thing right now. It's just become really popular with some people, and other people think it's stupid and it's a waste of money. When I started out, I didn't know if I would like it or not. So it wasn't even a real big consideration. And one of the first things I got with these fans, when I saw what they look like, I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. So I bought some more stuff, and it's all programmable. So you can have all kinds of patterns and colors, and so maybe that's hokey, but maybe if you were around like I was in the early days of computers, like back in the 70s, you'd be surprised at just how many blinking lights they had all over the place, because a light on and a light off is a lot like a 1 and a 0. So they had them all over the place. Or you might think of like the deck on the Enterprise in Star Trek, lights everywhere. So it's kind of a legacy thing, if you want to look at that, nostalgic or whatever, because they don't serve any real purpose. But it's just a coolness factor. So there's a lot of people who are really into doing the lighting now. All right. That probably took more than a minute. I really can't think of anything else I want to say right now, but I just wanted to put that all down, and hopefully who's ever listening will get something of value from it. All right, that's it.